Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. The Afternoon Update with Lynlee Foo.
Good afternoon. Now think about the last time you traveled for work. Maybe it was rushing through the airport for a client meeting, flying out to a project site, or juggling back-to-back trips across different time zones. Business travel isn't just about getting from point A to point B. It's about keeping relationships alive, winning deals, and making sure operations don't skip a beat. And nowhere is that more true than here in Asia Pacific, which now accounts for more than 40% of global corporate travel spend. That's according to the Global Business Travel Association. Now that figure is forecast to grow from about $506 billion US dollars in 2024 to over $850 billion US dollars by 2033. And against this backdrop, there's been a major development. ATPI, one of the most established international travel and event management companies, has merged with Direct Travel. Together, they form a new global travel management powerhouse handling more than $6 billion US dollars in annual travel volume. It is a significant consolidation in the global travel management sector that could reshape the competitive landscape. So what does this mean for Asia's corporate travelers, and how are companies rethinking travel as part of the growth strategy? Joining me now is Ali Hussain, Regional Managing Director in Asia for ATPI. Ali, welcome.
Thank you very much, Lynlee.
Now, corporate travel, Ali, in Asia Pacific is forecast to grow nearly 70% over the next decade, from $506 billion to over $850 billion, as I mentioned earlier. So what's driving this growth, and what are companies prioritizing today?
Well, primarily the growth in Asia is being driven by the fact that 50% of the world's population approximately lives in this part of the world, in Asia, with China, India, South Korea, Japan, as some of the bigger countries. They also are 3 of the top 5 GDPs in the world. And what we have seen over the last 10 years, and especially over the last 5 years in particular, is the multinational nature of the businesses within these countries. So China, the cars, Chinese electric cars, etc., have all become more international nature. So we are seeing more business travel into Asia as well as expanding from out of Asia. And we see this trend continue across many years to come. So Asia will continue to remain that sort of powerhouse in that area. Okay. And this brings new requirements for corporate travel, because corporate travel is setting new standards, new routes, new distribution capabilities, and there's balance between corporate requirements and the traveler requirements that also need to be met.
Okay, can we talk more about that? What makes this region such a business travel powerhouse?
Well, it is the innovation that is now being driven out of this region. As I said, just by the sheer numbers and the volume of people that reside in Asia, and the fact that countries like India, China, and South Korea are now driving more industries in technology, energy, maritime. They were always part of that culture, but now we are seeing a growth curve in modern technology-driven, as there's a shift in the type of business that is being transacted for the future.
Okay, and it's down to culture as well, isn't it? Because markets like India, Southeast Asia, and China, they're expanding rapidly, and face-to-face interaction, I think, would still be critical in such markets.
Oh, absolutely. I think the multicultural impact of travel, especially as economies are shifting, and we know that the world landscape is changing. And so travel and corporate travel is changing, whether that is brought on by new geographies opening up or the kind of difficult or tumultuous times we are facing, whether that's tariffs or disruptions due to conflicts through the Middle East. Whenever these disruptions take place, new channels of business are formed, and that always requires face-to-face meetings. That always requires person-to-person interaction, and that we see that happening for a long time.
Ali, let's talk about the latest announcement. This merger with Direct Travel, it creates a global player managing over $6 billion US dollars in travel. How does that change what you can offer clients here in Asia?
Well, the acquisition of ATPI by Direct Travel is sort of a response to the evolution that we see This is not just in the nature of corporate travel, but also the business of travel by airlines, the products, and the way that they distribute capability is changing. And so we find a need where we are bringing together the new entity to provide global scale as well as invest in new technologies which allow that little bit of delta of human care, a better user experience, and at the same time provide specialist service and a more personalized service to the traveler.
So clients are supposed to get the scale of a global giant, but without losing the regional nuance that makes solutions actually work on the ground?
Exactly. So it's a global experience, but with that local expertise. Okay. It's not just a technology-driven point and click. We are also there through that travel experience to help and serve where required.
Okay, something I'm quite curious about. ATPI has always been known for industry-specific travel management. Why does specialization matter in this business?
Yes, well, we do work in a lot of specialist sectors, and I think that's important because the type of requirements based on travel and the travel expertise in infrastructure sector as opposed to oil and gas and energy and shipping sectors, these sectors don't happen, or business does not transact in all these places in regular spots. So it's not always Singapore, Dubai, London, New York. Oil rigs are offshore. Shipping companies have different routes that they need to take. And even the education sector that we serve very well, the student requirements and the experiences are different. And in each of these cases, it's not, in some cases, it's individual travel. In many cases, we also do a group of people coming from diverse locations having to meet and travel together. And all of this requires a much higher touch than a simple point-and-click situation of travel. And so we align that sector expertise, and we also try and align it with the business goals of the companies that we serve, because travel in different ways can be HR recruitment and retention policy.
Okay. It
can be an operational requirement where operational efficiencies are important. In other places, it's a cost management requirement. So all of these, including all the industries and the MICE industry, meetings and incentives industry that we represent and serve, requires that specialism.
Wow. So it sounds like a one-size-fits-all approach simply won't work.
It won't work for most of the specialist areas that we are going for. It's easier to think of that as point to point when you're just in control of your own travel, but not when it becomes corporate and multiple people with different agendas to fulfill.
Okay, Ali, you briefly mentioned the HR aspect of travel. So we're also seeing companies treat travel as part of the employee experience. How is that shaping policies in Asia? Well,
different companies, but as part of the HR policies, we see when HR is more involved, then the traveler well-being and the duty of care for travelers takes on far more importance. And that means that not only is it important to get the person from one location to another, but also make sure that the purpose for which this traveler is traveling is fulfilled. So examples of that is there are companies which choose very consciously not to do red-eye flights, not to do overnight flights, because what they want is an employee who's completely switched on for that super important meeting they are in the next day. And so different companies take those approaches depending on what the final business goal is, but traveler well-being, and then tracking that traveler through difficult situations. We've seen so many disruptions of travel with airspaces in the Middle East closing down, CrowdStrike, which shut down computers, and the need to manage people through those situations, especially when they're stuck outside their home country, is very important.
Okay, let's turn to sustainability. How is that impacting your industry, and how are companies in Asia approaching carbon tracking and reporting?
Data analytics related to carbon tracking and carbon tracking in general across travel has become more mature over the years. So apart from policies where there's carbon offsetting, which some of our customers choose, there is also a lot of choice now being made about sustainable hotels, trying to take direct flights, having choices which are made where you can lower your carbon footprint as much as you can within a travel space. So in air travel, that is in particular, but you also see that in ground transportation where people will choose to take electric cars over regular cars, whether they're using Grab, Uber, etc.
So it's really moving up the agenda quickly?
I think it's moved up the agenda. And it is now there. It is part of everyone's program. I think it will further keep improving as new technologies and solutions come into play. In air travel, there is a certain headroom where it is possible. And then until absolutely new technology comes in which can reduce carbon footprint, that is going to take some time. But you can see that in sustainability in the hotel space. You can see that in the ground transportation space. You can even see that in some countries in the rail space.
Coming closer to home, here in Singapore, we often talk about being a hub for the region. How does that shape corporate travel demand?
Singapore has always been a global financial hub for Asia, and it's got phenomenal air connectivity. It has a great business environment, and it is a great stopover site for meetings and incentives and programs. And as a hub for the multiculturalism that exists in Asia, it's a great place to bring 4 or 5 diverse thought processes come together, and you hold your global or your regional headquarter meetings over here. And not only does it act as sort of hub for these, it is also a regional headquarter where a lot of the policies for Asia get set and then are implemented in the countries that they represent. And so as a travel hub, it will always remain significant in the corporate travel space.
Yeah, I think Singapore is probably one of the most travel-intensive cities in Asia.
It is. It is one of the most travel ones. And also, I think the Singapore government and, with the Changi Airport new terminal being opened, we anticipate that they are building for that growth, which will continue for several years to come.
Okay, Ali, looking ahead with this merger with direct travel and the expansion in India, China and South Korea, where do you see the biggest growth hotspots?
Well, in Asia, we are already seeing that growth. We are seeing significant growth in India and China already. We see South Korea and Japan as other key markets that are there. Not to mention other ASEAN markets who are also benefiting from the new technologies and infrastructure developments that are taking place. So we see especially India, China and South Korea as areas of growth with new technologies in IT, booming AI and AI data centers, the EV sector that is there, that kind of semiconductor space that we are seeing out of Taiwan and Taipei, and its need across not just Asia, but its impact across the world in the US as well is quite interesting to watch.
Okay, that's a fascinating outlook. Travel not just as logistics, but as a lever for business growth. Ali, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynlee.
And he is Ali Hussain, Regional Managing Director for Asia at ATPI, bringing us a front row view of how Asia's travel priorities from technology and sustainability to employee experience are reshaping the global industry. And if you've just joined us, ATPI is an established travel group, and its merger with direct travel is indeed a significant consolidation in the global travel management sector. You're listening to Industry Insight on Money FM 89.3.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.